The amount of confidence that jiu-jitsu has brought to me personally is amazing. I wouldn't have been able to sit down in front of a camera 6, 7, 8 years ago. It wouldn't have happened. I would have been days of anxiety.
I have this tendency to overanalyze and overthink and have all of these thoughts in my brain at once. And when you're in a role, you really can only deal with one thing at a time. And how much that has actually impacted my everyday life is amazing.
It's definitely changed my life. Just having something I can be dedicated towards, and with like the individual competitions that come up, is like having the specific goal at that time is something to work towards. And also just the community, like it's such a tight-knit community that meeting all these new people who are passionate about the same things you're passionate about is just really nice to have that.
Honestly, sometimes I spend more time here than I do at my job. There's sacrifices for sure, and we don't get paid for what we do. It's just we enjoy doing it so much, and getting people involved and helping people get better.
It's tough. It's physically demanding. You end up with gnarly fingers. You end up with bruises sometimes that you have to explain to your friends because they're fingerprint marks, black eyes. Yeah, my coworkers don't even think twice anymore. I'm working hard. I'd love to be the first. It took a while for me to have one of the first because there's someone ahead of me for blue, there's someone ahead of me for purple, and brown, it was finally it. And it's not important to me to be the first, like it's not the be-all end-all, because to have women, like someone in the Maritimes reach that is really, really exciting to me. It still feels like I'm a white belt, and I'm thinking about, you know, that year, 10, 15 years down the road when I'm a black belt. It always seems like, I know it's gonna happen at some point, but it always seems like you're forever learning.
The idea of just being like a strong person, a strong female, lifting other women up, which is a huge part of being a strong female. I think she's fantastic at that. And also just not making it about like the way to be feminine and to succeed in the sport is to be like the men. I think that she's so good at being like, you are a woman, we're gonna do this in a way that females do this, and it is totally badass.
I mean, she's a really good coach. She can see things that I don't really recognize, especially in a match, coaching her teammates and stuff. I think she's a better coach than I am, honestly. So don't tell her I said that.
Her dedication, her passion for the sport, and the fact that she was one of the only women training when she started.
Once I got my blue belt, I took advice from Ray, the owner of Shidokai, to start up a women's program because there were none. So we decided that we would start the program free of cost to women, just to encourage them to come out and give the sport a try because there weren't many, or they'd come out and they'd stay class and that would be it. It seemed to be that the women's class kind of offered that really easy sort of graduation into jiu-jitsu. It wasn't an intimidation of, you know, dealing with larger sweaty men right off the bat.
So I started jiu-jitsu, I started training the women's classes September 2014. Courtney's fantastic, she's very supportive. She does what she can to get you out here and to just encourage you to be your best. So even if you're not interested in competing, she'll help you with just the recreational aspects of it, or just the personal growth aspects of it. And if you are interested in competing, she will help you further your game for competitive reasons.
I've been training with Courtney for almost as long as I've been doing jiu-jitsu. I think that it, for me especially, had an amazing impact on my self-image and my self-worth and what I can do with my body and how I feel about my body. And it's a super safe space I could understand how people would be really hesitant to do it with the boys. I'm still hesitant to do it with the boys sometimes, depending on like my mood and like how angry I am.
When I first started, I could count on one hand the amount of girls that were training. Then it got to a point that I could count on one hand the amount of girls that had belts. Then it was I could count. Well, it got to a point that I can't even count the amount of belted women anymore. It's grown that big, which is fantastic because other clubs are following suit and doing women's programs and stuff like that. So really seeing the importance of having women within the club and seeing what an important aspect that is and how much it changes the dynamics of the club.
Even now, a lot of people don't realize how behind the scenes she is, like with local tournaments, getting women involved. When she started, I mean, there was maybe one other girl in a tournament, and sometimes the women would get overlooked. And I think that's sort of started her goal with getting more women involved with the sport.
Competition was challenging. My very first competition, I had been training, I thought it was originally 3 months. It was actually only 8 weeks. And I decided I was going to compete. I figured, hey, no expectation, I'm going to go in. And it ended up being very frustrating because there was only one other girl, and it was the girl that I was training with. And I don't want to pay $40 to compete against someone that I train with every day. So I had asked to go with the guys. She had asked to go with the guys. And it was a really big deal at the time, really big deal. I was made to feel really silly for asking and made to feel, I didn't feel great. I didn't come away from it feeling great. I really took it, ran with it, and decided, we're gonna make this so that people are wanting to compete. People are not feeling like less than a person for asking for the same rights as everyone else as far as competing goes.
Definitely a bias. I mean, I think back then maybe a lot of the guys didn't want to compete with women because, they might get showed up. Maybe I don't know. But there was definitely starting out there could have been some sexism, and I think you still find that in any sport or any recreational activity.
There is a much larger female presence in the sport today, but we still do have to train a lot with men. And actually, my last competition, I did have to compete with men because there wasn't enough female blue belts in my weight division to actually form a division.
Interesting in competition because I feel like they're often organized by men, and I think that they feel uncomfortable about talking to us about our weight. So it becomes this weird thing the morning of. This is like a very heavy subject actually, because there's so few females that we end up getting grouped together, and there's a large weight difference. So it becomes this weird struggle where people have to compete against people who are heavier than them.
Courtney got started about a year after me. Of course, I would come home, try out the moves on her, and I think after a while she had enough of that.
He'd be coming home doing wrestling moves. I'd be standing near the bed and he'd try a takedown, or I'd be going in for a hug and he'd be looking for double unders. I'd be going to reach for something and he'd do an arm drag. Just stuff that started to annoy me.
Anyway, I finally convinced her to come to class, and it was a little bit out of her comfort zone, but when she joined, there's sort of no looking back.
We were engaged just over a year ago in Montreal at an international BJJ tournament.
I sort of dream big sometimes. I had this idea in my head, and it just sort of snowballed, like a lot of the things in my head, of getting maybe some celebrities in the MMA world, BJJ world. Started out small, BJJ world. I was like, hey, why don't I see if I can get some MMA people to get on film and convincing Courtney to say yes to me.
This guy loves you. Courtney loves you, so say yes to him.
Courtney, I know he's not the best looking guy. He's pretty ugly, but you know what? You gotta say yes to Steve.
He took me up onto the podium and proposed to me then while I'm watching the video. Yeah, I'm not one for attention, so that kind of I was a little bit mad at him at the time, but I got over it pretty quick. When I grew up, it was, I always joke that my dad made a point of making my sister and I his sons, the boys that he didn't have. We grew up, they made a point of teaching us basic plumbing, teaching us basic carpentry. We were very comfortable with that. But growing up, we had horses. That was where all of my time went. Jiu-jitsu wasn't something that I watched, wasn't something that I was interested in, not even judo. I still remember talking to a friend, traveling by bus into school, and her talking about her judo class. I was like, oh, if I did that, I'd die.
If I'm in a walker, I'll still be trying to do jiu-jitsu. So the cool thing about it is, if you get injured and just tape up your limb, keep going. Can't imagine not doing jiu-jitsu.
As long as I'm physically able. As long as I don't have any major injury that's going to keep me from training, I'll stay on the mats.
My body is feeling it. Like, I definitely get sore now. My limbs are, my joints are sore. But I actually don't even intend to slow down. I actually would prefer to speed up a little bit.
I've been lucky. The boys that I train with are fantastic. They've been really respectful to the other females that train. And I think that speaks volumes because of the amount of girls that we do have training here.
Courtney is a very high-ranked belt, and she's Courtney. She just demands respect. So I think that she proves that women can do jiu-jitsu in this club.
Constantly, it'll be building this program. When we started, it was young. There were maybe a couple of blue belts in the program at the time. It's grown huge. We actually had to move buildings because the program was that big. So it'll be forever building that and growing that. But it's also still going to be constantly working with the girls. I think that's my first and foremost when it comes to the actual passions within the passion, is getting girls competing, getting girls to do martial arts. We're only recently getting into competitions where we're actually able to have blue belts compete for female. That when I first started, it was just having a division for women in general, not even a colored belt division. So still working on that, still pushing to have that happen. But yeah, we'll eventually be there, and it'll be really exciting when it happens.